Hi, my name is Susan Lesuin, and I'm the Administrative Manager at the local Highway Technical Assistance Council. Today, I will be just going through line by line of the Road and Street Finance Report to discuss what items you would be listing and including on each line of the report. So we will cover quickly the changes in the report. We've added some new instructions and also the House Bill 312 revenue and the reporting requirements for that revenue that the legislature passed in 2015. If you don't know, the Idaho Code 4708 requires the certification of road disbursements each year. This is done through the Road and Street Finance Report, which is due to the Idaho State Controller every year by December 31st. ITD receives the information from the controller, they compile that information, and then forward on page 3 to LTAC, which we then compile the information and use for reporting. The disbursements from the HDA fund that you receive from filling out this report are done 4 times a year: October, January, April, and July. In this year, 2015, the first disbursement from the House Bill 312 funds were disbursed in October. During this first year, we should receive an additional 25% in additional revenue, and every subsequent year should be about 30% additional. This information can be found on ITD's website under About Us, Economic and Research, and then the quarterly current distribution. On this spreadsheet, it shows how much you receive from the highway user revenue along with the House Bill 312 portion. It's important to make sure you track those amounts separately since you will be required to report on the House Bill 312 highway user revenue that you receive. So again, you can go to ITD's website or on your check warrant or your deposit, it was broken out in the 2 separate amounts, so you can track that as 2 separate amounts you've received. So starting off in the report, on the top of the report, I'm going to point out any of the changes on the report we've done a red box around so you can kind of track where we've made those changes this year on this Road and Street report. So the top page of page 1, the only change we have made is with the commissioner signatures. We added the information there. Those were blank lines before. So now we're just requesting when you sign the report upon completion, you have your mayor or your 3 commissioners sign the report certifying that they've reviewed it as well. Going straight into the line 1, talking about the receipts on this report. Line 1, you look at the beginning balance as of October 1st, the previous year. You can get this amount off of line 64 on your prior year report, or you can attach a brief explanation if you enter a different amount than you have included on the prior year's report. If for some reason you realize you had the wrong amount on the prior year and you don't want to amend that report, you can simply put what the correct amount should be and then make sure you put an explanation, attach it to the back of the sheet so we understand why you've made that change. Under receipts, the top section is the local funding sources. Line 2, the property tax levy. Make sure you only include funds on any of these lines that relate to your road, street, and bridge department. So on your property tax levy, the amount should include permanent or temporary property tax revenues that are levied specifically for your streets and bridges. It includes normal and special property tax levies in this line. None of your general funds that you're using are included in this line. So make sure that if you're taking money from general fund, you don't use line 2. The example we've included are your permanent or temporary levies, your override levy, your operating levy for streets. Line 3, sale of assets. So any income you've received in the reporting year from the sale of land or equipment purchased with dedicated highway user revenues or revenues that is specifically for your street and bridges. If the asset was not purchased with your road and street funds, do not include it on this report. So if you sold a street sweeper that you purchased in a prior year with your higher user revenues or any of your road and street funds, you would include the sale amount on line 3. Line 4, your interest income. So this is any interest that you've received in the reporting year from the investments of revenues. So a lot of people have their highway user revenue just put directly into the local government investment pool with the state. So any interest they would receive on that money, they would list here. So again, it's any interest. So all of your interest from all of your investments of your road and street funds go on this line 4. On line 5, your fund transfers from non-highway accounts. So this includes any transfers of revenue in the reporting period from funds that are not dedicated road and street or bridge funds. So highway districts typically do not use this line since they do not have any funding that is not dedicated to roads, streets, or bridges. But this would be money that maybe a city would transfer in from their general fund to pay for extra snow removal in a heavy year. So again, this is just from non-highway accounts. Line 6 are the proceeds from sale of bonds, including your LIDs. So it's the sale of bonds received in the reporting year, including your local improvement district bonds for street and bridge improvements. So again, the example is just a general obligation bond for street and bridges. On line 7, we're asking for the proceeds from issue of notes, including loans. So it includes the proceeds from issuance of notes in the year, such as a short-term loan from a bank. Remember that as a local entity, a governmental entity, you have to record the loan and show the expenditure. So it's important that if you get any type of loan in your year for your road and bridges, that you make sure you enter that on line 7 of this report. On line 8, the local impact fees, it will include all your revenue received in your reporting years from local impact fees for your road and street. Again, highway districts typically do not use this line except for ACHD. They currently have local impact fees they charge. Line 9 is for the local option registration fee. This is the line that if you collect local option vehicle registration fees, currently Ada County is the only jurisdiction who is able to assess those fees. So line 9 would only be used for ACHD. On line 10, it is for all other local receipts or transfers in. So this is the catch-all for any other local revenue you may receive. This might be a fund that you receive from a different entity, a payment that you have an MOU with them and they pay them for work that you perform. It might be a reimbursement of an expenditure from a prior year or any other miscellaneous funds that you come in that are local. On line 11, you just simply total the local funding. So lines 2 through 10 will be totaled on line 11. The next section of the revenue is for the state funding sources. On line 12, we did change the name of the line and just help clarify what this line is intended for. The highway user revenue line is for all state highway user revenues received by your jurisdiction. So this will include any House Bill 312 dollars that you received in fiscal year 15 if you count it in that year. Again, this is for those quarterly payments that you receive from the state from the highway user revenue. On line 13, you're going to list any of your sales tax or inventory replacement tax. These are the funds and revenues that you receive from the county in the reporting year that are dedicated for your road and street funds. So again, these are the funds the county pays you. On line 14, it's for the sales tax revenue sharing. These are the revenue sharing dollars that you receive from the state. And again, these are only the funds that you receive that are dedicated for your streets and bridges. Line 15, we changed the wording of to clarify what this line is intended for. This line is for state exchange funds, Specifically, if you receive an LRIP grant from LTAC, you will list the year you received those funds on line 15. Line 16 is your other state receipts or transfers in. So again, any state funds you receive in the year to your entity for roads and bridges. The example we use on line 16 is the Department of Homeland Security funds. If you receive funding from them in the fiscal year, make sure you list on line 16. And then on line 17, you're going to total 12 through 16 to get a total of your state funding for the year. In the federal funding sources, we made the biggest change with the names on this year's report. Line 18, we updated the name to the Secure Rural Schools. So this is the portion of the Secure Rural Schools, or SRS funding, that is allocated to roadway. It's also used to be known as the National Forest Revenue Apportionment, and some people refer to this as those Craig-Wyden funds that you receive for your roads and streets. Line 19, 20, and 21, we updated the name of these lines to include the federal aid explanation. So line 19 is for your federal aid bridge, line 20 is your federal aid rural, and line 21 is for federal aid urban. On all three of these lines, you're going to only list the 92.66% in revenue you receive as reimbursement from the state on those invoices you pay on a project. So if you receive a federal aid project, you pay your engineer and get reimbursed once it's processed and approved. So again, the 92.66% you receive in your reimbursement, you're going to list in the appropriate line, either bridge, rural, or urban. Moving on to line 22, the federal lands access funds and all other federal receipts. So again, we updated the name to include the federal lands access funds. This could be from the public lands discretionary funds. It could be part of the federal lands access program, the Western federal lands, or a variety of other federal funding sources. One of the things that is important to keep in mind is if you get a local highway safety improvement program or a safety grant from LTAC, those funds will be listed on line 22. On line 23, you simply total your federal funding revenue from lines 18 and 22, and then on line 24, you're going to have a total from your local, state, and federal funding sources to give you a total receipts for the fiscal year.